hold on a minute. Let's see if it comes back up. Okay. It is back up again. Let me bring you over here, Marty.
Okay.
Here, end the screen. There we go. Martin Lynch. Thanks so much for joining us here on the broadcast. Spent many years in
Good to
the
be here.
aviation industry, and you now are taking that expertise over to, well, you've been on the show for family court issues before, for sure. So let me go to, okay. You've been on the show with family court issues for sure, helping us out with that. You've made great headways there, and I believe Arizona is where you're from. And we're having you on today because you've put together some legislation that is going to hold big tech accountable. And I know you can talk about this during the show here, but I know that you're getting some pretty good responses from some legislators. And this is the way that we can win, Marty, is if we take these people on. And again, we're having some issues with the streaming. I don't know if there's something just wrong with the internet today or what's going on. But again, we're recording this show, so what we'll do is, if worse comes to worse, I'll just upload the show after we record it and put it back out there again.
Okay.
Martin Lynch, anything you want to say here in your opening, shall we say, comments here on the broadcast? Anything you want to say right away?
Well, big picture is none of the little things matter if the big things don't get taken care of. And right now we're in a position, and I think most people have noticed this, that we don't know if the people we're voting for are going to be elected or just turned out to pasture because somebody pushed a few buttons on a computer someplace.
Yeah, right
And
on.
another problem we have, of course, is the internet censorship. I think everybody's pretty much, figured out that that's a problem. And the attempts that I've seen, they are in conflict with the federal law, and therefore, if there's any state law that's in conflict with federal law, it just goes in the trash, and it's not going to fix anything. Okay, so I think we've addressed that. So we have two opportunities here to put the people back in the saddle, in terms of government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And if you don't have that, if you turn over all your authority to that man behind the curtain, you can just expect to get something that you're not going to like.
Indeed. Well, just before you came on, pardon me, just before you came on you came on with me on the line here, I wanted to highlight something that was just released on Zero Hedge here very recently. Facebook oversight overturns 4 out of 5 cases in a victory for free speech. This is just published today by Zero Hedge. Facebook's oversight board, comprised of 20 journalists, politicians, and judges from around the world, has overturned 4 out of 5 cases in which the social media giant removed posts for violating its policies on hate speech, violence, or other issues, according to NBC News. Facebook says it will abide by the board's decision. And I stated here before you came on, I'm always a little bit concerned when someone like Facebook or any big tech company says that they're going to regulate themselves. That throws up red flags for me, Marty. How about you?
Well, anybody who regulates themselves is not regulated by definition.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So there you go.
That's a good point. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to try to go fight past these technical issues, and I may just re-release this video here. We had a bunch of people that were on earlier when we couldn't connect. Had a lot of people looking in, and now it's not so much because I think these technical issues are causing some people some grief. At any rate, we're going to continue to move forward here, and we certainly do appreciate you coming here on the show, Marty. All right, so what we're going to do is let's get right into it. Let's get right into the meat and potatoes of things. I got this all lined up here. Let's go first and talk about the electronic voting machines. Go ahead and give us a little bit of a rundown on this document we see here. Arizona.
Okay,
State
so
Senate.
what you're looking at is a cover document that is typical for the state of Arizona, and it just tells you, I think, where it says an essential step in restoring public confidence in the elections and government itself. If you don't have election integrity, then That by definition means the democracy part of your democratic republic has disappeared, and they can install whoever they want as their puppet rulers over us. And we no longer have a country. So you can't get anything more important than that. And so if you look at all the failure modes in the election system, some are more dangerous than others. It's just logical. Like dead people voting, that could move the needle maybe 1%, maybe 2%. I don't know. Voter rolls that are not up to date, that could move the needle maybe a couple percent or maybe 3%. When you put the number of votes on a computer and rely on the computer to spit out the number, then there's no limit to the amount of fraud that you can be faced with. They can say, well, we need to move 6 million votes from candidate A to candidate B. And all they got to do is push a few buttons to do that when everything becomes electronic. If you have paper ballots, now you've got a room that with boxes, with totals on those boxes, that anybody can walk in there with their tabulating machine, like you see at a bank where they count $100 bills and those little tabulating machines. They don't sit there and go like this. They stick in the machine, it'll and reads everything all automatically. And so once my tabulating machine had better agree with your tabulating machine. And if it does, and I take a sample of 10 out of 100 boxes randomly from that storeroom, I'm going to say, you know what, this looks pretty good. And we'll take your totals and we'll move on to the next precinct. But with electronic voting, it doesn't work that way. The stuff can fly around on the internet to Frankfurt. It can go to Beijing. It can go any place and come back and say anything. And it's starting to look like that's what we're dealing with. And so in Maricopa County, these electronic Dominion voting machines, we have the state Senate says we want to look at them. And the election officials in Maricopa County said, no, you can't. There are private machines. They're secret, and you're not allowed to see anything. And so then Senator Eddie Farnsworth, chairman of the Judiciary Committee, says, well, we'll issue a subpoena. And I said, that's okay. We'll just ignore that. Okay. So the solution that we're proposing is that in elections from 2022 thereon forward is we're going to use paper ballots only. And so now, you get a little bit of pushback from people saying, well, we need to, study it and everything. So wait a minute. If paper ballots are no good, well, then we got to get rid of all of them and use voting machines for everything. Okay. So, but if paper ballots are good, then why can't we use them for everything? And then we have a physical audit trail sitting there that can be examined in a couple of days. If somebody wants to look at everything, you could do it in less than a week for sure. And so we don't know why we've been through this business with the secret voting machines. And for some reason, we cannot get a bill that says from now on, we're just going to do paper ballots. Voting machines are prohibited. If you go to the statute that goes along with this cover sheet, that would probably illustrate the simple truth of what we're trying to propose. I think it's 16-446.
16-446.
Yeah, I'm just going from memory now.
That's what we're on. We're on, wasn't it? That was 16-446. That's what we were on. 16.
Okay, that was the cover sheet. Now there's I think there's a 1-page copy of the Arizona statute.
So there's the other 1 page we had right there. That's another 1-pager, and that's like and then I have this one. That's right here. The
cover for the next topic.
Is this one right here? Is this what we're looking at right here?
This is all the censorship. Sorry, that's the next bill.
Okay, so the only
whatever the next document is, it has to be it.
So it's got to be down here. That's
there it is. Sorry.
Oh, it's underneath. Yeah. Okay. I thought it was
there. It is.
There it is. It's underneath.
Okay.
So
now you could, if you could zoom in a little bit, that's fine. If not, I can just read it off to you. It's pretty simple. This is, well, it's okay. Put it back where it was. It's fine. Specifications for electronic voting. An electronic voting system consists, you can see where it used to include also voting machines. Okay. And so we just simply said only tabulating equipment and used for tabulating votes. Okay. And then we left their language in there, but it's this second item down here, B1, pretty much spells it out. The electronic voting system shall provide for voting in secrecy when using voting booths. That's existing language. And it shall be used to tabulate votes only. Only paper ballots may be used for voting and audits. Electronic voting machines are prohibited. Okay, so now that puts a limit on the chicanery, because if you take the vote totals and put them on a computer, there's no limit to what kind of monkey business can go on behind the scenes, and all they got to do is say, "Oh, I didn't see anything happen." And you can't, you are hard pressed to show forensically that something did happen without that audit trail that takes you back to a paper ballot that you can physically count. Go back and count again.
So just to be clear here, the red items that are lined through, that's the exact specific language that they're using right now. And what you're doing is you're just going through, marking out the language. Now, did you add this tabulating votes for candidates with both primary, or that was already there? So you didn't.
Yeah, what you're looking at, the stuff that's blue and underlined is stuff that was added.
Okay. Okay.
The stuff that's red and struck through is the stuff that's removed.
Okay.
And if you scroll down, you'll see most of the stuff in this statute is struck and removed.
Yeah, I see that.
Because, if all you're doing is using a tabulator, an audit is very simple. You walk into this room and you say, I want to look at this box, and this box. And I've got my own tabulator. And my tabulator better agree with what your tabulator says. And then you go through the boxes. And if they're within, a fraction of 1%, you say, okay, I think this precinct looks good, and you can move on to the next precinct. But if you got stuff out there, a significant percentage of your vote total, say 20 or 30% of your votes are electronic, well, you could do anything you want with that election if you have a password.
So here's the first thing that comes to my mind, Marty. There are certainly laws in place right now that the voting commission, depending upon whatever state it is, cannot make the changes that they made to the voting process without having the legislators' approval. But that doesn't matter to these scoundrels, these crooks. They move forward even though it's unlawful. They go do it anyway. And in some aspects, it looks like they're able to get away with it. My thought is, how do we can make provisions, statutes, laws until the cows come home, but if there's no one there to enforce it and there's no hammer, these people are just going to flaunt the law and do what they want like they are now.
It's all the more reason to take the dangerous toys away from the children.
Flesh that out for me. What do you mean? You mean just taking have no more election commission?
No more electronic voting. Everything's on a paper ballot. I mean, Texas did it. They looked at Dominion and they laughed at the thing and they said, what? This thing's completely wide open, can be manipulated. There's no integrity at all. Get this thing out of here. This is a joke. But other states, there was people spreading a lot of money around, paying for the machines. People were getting extra little gifts for having those machines contracts signed. And if the law does not prohibit voting machines, just says, well, you the election commission could figure out how to run the election. Well, then that's the discretion to sign contracts and bring in devices that can be manipulated. And, I mean, the question comes down to, do you trust every single person that's in government? And I don't think any reasonable person can say that.
Almost no one in government.
Every single person is honest. That's just mathematically impossible. So if you want to have a democratic republic, you have to have integrity of your elections, or else the country's gone, and it's that important. And the idea that we're going to allow somebody to electronically manipulate the results of an election is just, I can't even comprehend it, how that could make sense to anybody.
Well, school me for a minute here, Marty.
But that's where we are.
School me for a minute here. Who technically, if it's a federal election, for example, and I know there are local elections along with the federal elections typically, like November 3rd, there were votes here locally in Montana for the legislature and for the president and other other government, U.S. government.
Sure.
I guess federal, I should say, is the word I'm looking for. Who holds the responsibility? I mean, is the state, even though it's a federal election, is it still run by the individual states?
Yes.
Is that who's okay? So it all comes down to the state legislature, is what it really comes down to.
The state legislature has authority over how elections are going to be conducted, period. And the one of the problems we have is education. Okay, I think if you ask the average senator, I think I've heard him admit it. They said, you know what, I really didn't know anything about the nuts and the bolts of this stuff until it became an issue, and I had to get involved in the thing, because and so everybody's getting an education on elections and how they're done, and anything that does not make sense to you, that you do not understand. This is something that's so important. You have, I don't know, an obligation or a duty to pay attention and to make sure, if you don't understand what's going on, they better be able to explain it to you, or else get it out of here. And when you've got votes that are represented by ones and zeros inside of a computer, what can happen to those things, those zeros and ones inside that computer? If anybody has the right password, it can be converted into anything they want. There's nothing that can't be hacked. And so the paper ballot to me is, well, okay, you do paper ballots, then we'll go out and work on the voter rolls. We'll take care of these dead people, whatever. Okay. But the electronic voting machines, and you brought up a very good point, and I don't want to make sure we don't miss it, is that there's other people on there besides the president. There's the state and local representatives and federal representatives and senators. And I was at a rally down at the Capitol not too long ago, and there's a nice lady there, and I asked her, so how are things going with you? She said, well, I lost the election. I said, how do you know that? And she goes, well, now that you mention it, I really don't know, because we have electronic voting machines. And so if they can go in and monkey and shift 5 or 10 or 25 or 100 million votes at the push of a button for this election over here, well, why can't they shift 50,000 or 25,000 or however many votes they need for that election over there? I mean, in Arizona, we have a thin margin of Republicans in both the House and the Senate, and it wouldn't take much chicanery with these voting machines. Just push a couple buttons, put in your password, and push a couple of buttons, and all of a sudden, we're a blue state. And so, how do you run a democratic republic where the people have a say in their government with a system like that?
Well, let me ask you a question, Marty, and this is what I stated on my show here, and you can certainly comment on this, verify it, or shoot it down, whatever the case may be. But if there's voter fraud in Arizona, and there's widespread voter fraud in Arizona, I get disenfranchised in Montana and Idaho and Oklahoma and Florida. Yeah. So it's not like, well, that's just in Florida. Like, that's why I asked you, even though it's run by the states, the corruption in Florida, because when they're stealing votes, they're stealing votes from your vote. Like they're when they put a false vote in, it may not be your exact vote, but you get my point. Everybody that votes illegally gets their vote gets diminished or crossed out. Go ahead.
In this election right here, Pennsylvania was the big question mark, but you put that together with Wisconsin and Michigan, and Georgia, as we all know about Georgia, and then Arizona and Nevada, and and then New Mexico was a question mark. Heck, there's people are saying that Trump won California. With you got
Yeah,
electronic
I
voting
heard that.
machines, anything is possible. You can't
Yeah.
tell what reality is.
No,
And
it's true.
so why we would have those things is beyond my comprehension. And why we're not doing simply saying they're prohibited, why we don't say that, that is beyond my comprehension. I don't understand it unless somebody wants it there for a reason.
Well, what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick commercial break here, Marty, and we come back on the other side. We're going to dig into the other the social media stuff. Give out first of all, is that the world's most interesting man behind you there?
Yeah, that's we hang out together.
Yeah. I love those commercials. They're great. Go ahead and give out any websites and anything where people can find out more about you, Marty, before we go to a break.
Okay. I'm going to have these documents on my website for anybody to download. At the company that I'm affiliated with is We the People Court Services, and so the acronym for that is WTPCS.org. And those documents should be up by sometime tonight. So by tomorrow, you can download them. And what we got to do is we got to get 1 or 2 or 3 states to start the ball rolling.
Right.
And then the rest of them, you just have to say, how can you not be doing this?
Well, I think you should take it to the folks because the folks are tired of getting bamboozled. The legislature, not all in legislatures in all states, but generally speaking, some of these people are already, they're already captured. They're already bought. So, I mean, if the folks rise up and say, listen, we don't want any more electronic voting systems, or we're just going to, we're going to not participate in the election. I mean, there's got to be some sort of a hammer, and before we go to break, I tell you, I'm not sure if you've been following the whole GameStop thing, Marty, with the shorting and the short squeeze. But do you know that these scoundrels went out there and they stopped all the buying for all these stocks to help this hedge funds?
They suspended trading. I saw that. Yeah.
To help the hedge funds, to help the billionaires, Marty. This is why it has to be the folks, because the system is rigged. It's rigged. It's a fraud. It's a trick. It's a ruse. We know this. We deal with family court. We know about the lack of due process that happens so often.
You're right. And our dilemma right now is if we don't fix the election system and elect the candidates that we want, so we can elect our own candidates that we want, and if we don't fix the censorship that's out there, then the rest of the stuff becomes like it doesn't matter. Okay, if we don't have the tools that we need to fix all these other problems, then the other problems become insignificant. And we're on the verge of losing our country.
It's like
That's literally where we are.
It's like taking on a mob with a box of rubber bands. You're not going to get very far. You have to have the right tools necessary to do the job. And this is what you do with your bill here. Your proposals certainly help do that.
The trick is the people that are not on your side they have influence over the legislature, and I can't find anyone who's really helping them put together sound legislation that will hold water and make a difference. And so that's why if we here in Arizona have an opportunity to put something together that will actually work in other states, then we have a duty to alter or abolish absolute despotism. That's what Jefferson called it in the Declaration of Independence, paragraph 2. You can just look at it yourself. And so, we think we have solutions to the problems of election integrity and internet censorship that will actually work. So we're just trying to get those out there so that people can do something with them rather than spin their wheels with stuff that's ineffective.
Well, let's hit the internet censorship portion when we get back on the other side. We're here with Marty Lynch. He's a friend of the show from Arizona. He's done a lot of great work trying to help fix the absolutely corrupt to the core CPS, Child Protective Services, and certainly the family court system. It's one of the biggest lawbreakers in the country, folks. I know that's probably hard for you to grasp, but family court system is no friend of families. I can tell you that much right now, or the Constitution, sadly. We appreciate you, Marty, hanging on after the break. We're going to go ahead and hit the mute button here on your microphone and start run a couple commercials, and we'll be back after these brief messages. I'm your host, James White. This is Critical Disclosure Radio, criticaldisclosure.com, or you can go to northwestlibertynews.com. If you want to check out the hard news website, you can go to montanadailygazette.com. We'll be back after these brief messages here with Marty Lynch. If you like classic cars, exceptional service, and a money-back guarantee, then the Corner Shop in beautiful downtown Kalispell is the place for you. Whether it's an oil change, engine diagnostic, suspension work, or brakes all around, the Corner Shop has you covered. With expert technicians and a free consultation on all services, you can't go wrong with the Corner Shop. Did I mention the classic cars? While you're waiting for your expert service to be performed, take a stroll through the showroom to see Kalispell's smoothest collection of classic cars. The Corner Shop is conveniently located at 1212 South Main, just south of the courthouse. The Corner Shop is open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. till 5 p.m., so drop by for an appointment or call 755-7777. That's 755-7777. The Corner Shop, Kalispell's full-service auto repair facility. Hi, this video is brought to you by PatriotPrepared.com, where right now you can save $250 on each large package purchase, plus get free shipping to the continental United States. In these troubled times, it's not a bad idea to have some extra food storage available, and you can save big at Patriot Prepared right now. Go to PatriotPrepared.com, that's PatriotPrepared.com, and use the code TRUMP250 at checkout to receive your savings today. Okay, folks, I'm your host, James White, and this is the 28th day of January, 2021. We apologize for the numerous technical difficulties we've had today specifically. Usually everything works out pretty well, but for some reason, Marty Lynch comes on the program and technology is just going haywire on us. I'm sure it's not Marty's fault, but we do appreciate him hanging on after the break with us here. If you want to support this program, you can go to northwestlibertynews.com. That's northwestlibertynews.com. And click on the Support Independent News button there. And, of course, please support our sponsors. We're hearing that the food prices may go up 30 to 40% based upon the gas prices already spiking. And as soon as energy costs go higher, then everything else goes higher because how do you think we get stuff here or where you're at in your location? It's because it's got there by trucking, by train, or some other method that all takes energy. So when energy cost goes up, go up for everything. So if you want to get some, if you want to lock in some food, some storable food, long-term storable food right now, you can go to PatriotPrepared.com. That's PatriotPrepared.com, and you get big savings on the larger packages and free shipping. So plus all of the purchases there help support this broadcast directly. Okay, I'm going to bring my guest Marty Lynch back on the line here. Let me take off his mute button here. There we go, Marty. Marty, thanks so much for hanging out with us after the break. I really appreciate it. Appreciate all the work that you do, all the work that you've done to try to help straighten out the. Well, I'm just going to call it criminality, Marty. I mean, I'm a hardliner. These people are crooks that take people's children without due process, and they do it all the time. That's, as far as I'm concerned, a criminal act. If you deprive someone of their rights without due process, if it's not a crime when you break the Constitution, what would be a crime at that point? So, but that's not our topic for today. We've had you on numerous times to talk about the family court system and the work that you've done there. Today, we're talking about something. I wouldn't say it is it's important as we're rescuing children. I don't mean to put it on that level, but as far as our long-term, the future for us, our children, and everybody's children, we have to crack down on the censorship, because what's going to be coming next is they're taking your First Amendment now, and then they'll be coming after your Second Amendment next, and then you'll be a prisoner in your own land that your forefathers fought and died for. I hate to sound dramatic, Marty, but that is the path that they want us to go down. That would please the elite or the establishment very much if we lost our First and Second Amendment. I think they'd conquer us pretty quickly after that. We just can't let that happen. Any thoughts on that real quick, Marty, before we pull up this other document?
Well, anytime that, I don't know if any of your people, anybody's taken a look at Sun Tzu, The Art of War.
Oh yeah,
His principle, you can find a YouTube video in 5 to 7 minutes and it'll tell you everything you need to know. You got to understand your opponent, or good luck trying to defeat them in any kind of a conflict. And so it looks like what we're dealing with is a bunch of billionaires that know what's best for us. And, this is really nothing new. It's history repeating itself. We had King George. And if you want to find out what King George was up to, you can look at the Declaration of Independence. 2/3 of it's 3 pages. 2 of those pages was a list of all the bad things King George was up to. And one of those was depriving people of due process in the civil courts, which goes to the CPS issues that you're concerned with. And of course, any reasonable person would be concerned with that. The problem that we're facing now is that we're up against people that can take an election and turn it into whatever they want. And then they can manipulate public opinion by controlling. And I heard something very interesting, and I think you might, this may ring true with you. I'll just throw it out there. You've heard the term mainstream media, or the acronym MSM.
sure.
The opinion that I heard that I think I have to subscribe to is that media has a definition. That's not what these guys are. They are now bought and paid for because they're owned by an ownership. Somebody's come up with the billions of dollars necessary to purchase all this media, and has been converted into something else called propaganda by definition. So we really don't have mainstream media. We have what is in fact mainstream propaganda. And so when somebody says MSM or mainstream media, I say, no, sorry, that's incorrect. It's mainstream propaganda, MSP. And then we can carry on our conversation once we establish what it is we're dealing with. And so the antidote to that is the First Amendment, freedom of press, and freedom of speech. And so we should be able to go online and start up a YouTube channel and conduct ourselves in whatever way we see fit, as long as we don't violate standards of public decency, which brings us to the Communications Decency Act, which is the CDA, Section 230. And what that does is it says all the internet providers are immune from civil damages. Okay. If you want to bring up that statute, we can go through it, and I can tell you why. If people are probably aware that President Trump, you see CDA Section 230 there, says we want to abolish Section 230. And I'm not going to sign the defense bill unless it includes abolish Section 230. And so I think we are one step ahead of former President Trump in this statute right here, because Communications Decency Act has something called that Good Samaritan, where you take out things that are bad. And so we're saying that that's a necessary function on its face, that if there's something there that's obscene and demeaning or otherwise does not meet the standards of what the average person would consider acceptable, we should have somebody out there with the authority to take it down, to get rid of it. Where we run into trouble is it says in here that none of these people can be sued for money damages, which by default now presents everyone, it seems like, including former President Trump, the idea that these people there's no limits on their power whatsoever, and the only way to fix it is to get rid of the CDA. Okay. And so the bills that I've seen in the different states, they say, number one, that we are going to provide money damages and if the internet providers are bad. And that's a problem, because if you look at the wording of the statute here, it says no provider or user of interactive computer service shall be held liable on account of any action voluntarily taken in good faith. And so then the question becomes, who determines what's good faith in any given situation? Who makes that determination? It doesn't say the internet provider there has the final authority, that the Constitution has just now disappeared and that due process is not going to be afforded to the person who's been deplatformed. It doesn't say that. It just says that they're not going to be held civil liability. You can see it right there. Okay. And then the important part that people miss, that everybody, including former President Trump, have not paid attention to, is this part down here where it says state law. Nothing in this section shall be construed to prevent any state from enforcing any state law that is consistent with this section. No cause of action may be brought and no liability may be imposed under any state or local law that is not consistent with this action. And the only thing that this federal statute does says you can't go sue Facebook for $1 billion. Okay. But you still have the right to free speech, which cannot just be arbitrarily taken away without due process. Okay. So what we're proposing is that we're going to have ourselves a state law to fill that gap, to spell out what happens outside of money damages. Okay, so you can go to civil court and sue to have your rights restored. You just can't sue these people for money on top of that. Okay, so what we've put together is a statute that says the states may make and effect laws that apply due process in a manner consistent with the Constitution to establish boundaries between Good Samaritan and unlawful citizenship. So the states are going to take that responsibility.
Censorship.
And say, this is
you mean censorship?
Unlawful censorship. Correct.
You said citizenship. I just want to make sure we got it right. Censorship. No, okay, my bad.
I was testing you. You passed. You're very good.
I am paying attention.
So that's number 2. So we simply restate the obvious from what they said in the paragraph above there. And now the other thing that's important about this statute that sets it apart is the definitions. Okay, if you scroll back up towards the top a little bit, okay, every statute that I've looked at from the different states says a definition of something is this and definition of something else is that. And it's not consistent with these definitions that are in the statute, CDA section 230. So what we did is we simply took the definitions out of section 230 and we cut and pasted them into this proposed statute, into this bill. That's what you're reading here. This is not what somebody thinks. This is word for word out of the federal statute, the definitions. Okay, so that takes any argument away where they say, oh, your bill is not consistent. It's worded differently. Therefore, it's no, all the definitions are exactly the same. Okay, and then the blanks that are left to be filled in, which is, I can't sue you for money, but I can certainly get a court to order you to put my YouTube page back up, or my Facebook page back up, my YouTube channel, sorry. And so that's what this law does. And so as you scroll down to number 3, a person who believes that their rights have been unjustly infringed under this statute may bring an action in state court. And then you can use this federal statute if you want, which is used widely, or other appropriate statutes, whichever ones you want, seeking to have your First Amendment rights to free speech restored. That is not inconsistent with the federal law. The federal law just says you can't go after them for money. The idea that these people can arbitrarily throw the Constitution in the trash is nonsense. It's not even, it's beyond common sense. Okay. And it's not there. And so all we're doing is asserting our authority on a state-by-state basis to say, we're going to decide, we're going to make the final decision. We're not going to be involved in every single thing. But when somebody comes up and says, hey, wait a minute, this is abuse and I want it corrected, we're providing a mechanism to do that. Okay. Then we go to 4, and finders of fact, and we'll get to that in a second, have discretion to award costs and fees to either party in an amount not to exceed $35,000 as they see fit. Frivolous litigation is discouraged. Okay, so now you can't go after them for damages or punitive damages, but for the costs of having to go litigate to have your rights restored, absolutely, that's on the table. And that's just common to any court proceeding in any court. If somebody's in there abusing their discretion, and the finders of fact, regardless of who that is, says, well, you know what? You should pay the other party's attorney's fees. That doesn't violate federal law in any way, shape, or form. And then number 5 is where we get to the actual 3-step process that we're proposing be used. And the first one is you get deplatformed, or you get shadow banned, or you get demonetized, whatever it is. You send a demand letter to the provider and you say, I want my rights restored and you're no longer violated. You have 45 days to fix this problem, or else we're going to go litigate the thing. What do you want to do? Now, you see that 87% thing right there? Okay, we have history of in Arizona of having jury trials in juvenile court in 2003. They did a report on what happened. And during that period of time, when they had jury trials available, 87% of those cases never went to court. So in other words, most cases, these civil cases, people know what the facts are and they have a pretty good idea of who's right and who's wrong. And when they go through and they flesh out the evidence and they look at it, they have a negotiation and they say, you know what, we go to court, we don't know what we're going to get, but let's make a deal. And they normally do. So if you can take 87% of the problem and make it disappear with the demand letter, well, that's a big leap forward. Okay. Now, step number 2 is available.
Hold on, Marty. What that tells me, 87% of these cases get, they just drop them after you send the letter. They know they resolve it. They know darn good and well what they're doing. They're just purposefully trying to censor conservatives until someone calls them out on it. Really, if they can get away with doing it forever, they're going to continue to do it forever until somebody.
I'll do it. I'll regulate myself and get away with whatever I can get away with. If anybody wants to let me do it, you know. Yeah, but that police officer that pulls me over for speeding, you know, he says, no, you're not going to do that. So we all have limits on our power. So if stage 1 doesn't work, the demand letter, let's fix this problem. We got 6 weeks to figure out a solution. Put my page back up. What's wrong with you? Okay. If they say, oh no, we're still going to keep it down because we don't like Trump or we don't like Biden or whatever, whoever the politician is of this du jour, then stage 2 is you go to court and you have a bench trial where a judge is going to give you a decision. And we're going to say that most of the time judges know that 2 + 2 = 4. Okay. And of course, we all know that sometimes judges make mistakes. Sometimes they think 2 + 2 = 8. If the judge says 2 + 2 = 8, then you have stage 3. And this is the important one here. And this is designed not to be used. It says, if the plaintiff is still dissatisfied, that person may ask for, whereupon the court shall process the case again as a jury trial using the same judge and the same case number. The final authority to deny a person their liberty interests rests with a jury. The jury shall consist of 8 persons and may deny rights with no more than 1 dissenting vote, which is a high standard, but you have to spell it out. All other verdicts may be reached with no more than 2 dissenting votes. The judicial system shall err on the side of liberty. So if the jury can't make a decision, the rights are automatically restored. And then the jury instructions shall include a copy of the statute. So they can come up with whatever kind of crazy jury instructions they want, but the legislation and the legislative intent is going to be in the hands of each juror for them to look at. And this is not the Encyclopedia Britannica. It's 2 pages. Okay.
Well, Marty, I notice how it says words are important. I know how it says right here. It says the court shall process the case again as a jury trial. So that's the difference between may process, because that puts the court, that puts the judge into having their own personal discretion to say, yeah, we're just not going to do it. But if it says shall do it, that's a lot more powerful word than may do it. Is that correct?
It's called may is discretionary and shall is an imperative.
And we want imperatives. That's good for us.
So, well, no, actually what you want is you want the judge to go, I want nothing to do with step 3. Mm-hmm. So guess what? I'm going to do something that's going to most likely result in I don't have to go to step 3. Now, if there is, keep in mind, this is the Communications Decency Act. If there is actual real live indecency out there, and a jury is likely to find that, you know, what you're putting up there is just really crazy, indecent stuff, and we don't want it. Well, they have the authority to say, yeah, we agree with Facebook. Get that page off of there. And this crazy guy with all the indecency stuff that is in here wasting our time, he should have to pay Facebook $20,000 in attorney's fees or $35,000, whatever. The jury has the authority to go either direction. So it's a check on the power of anybody to try to go down the path that's not supportable. And so if you want to skip down to the last section there, section 6.
There we go.
On that statute.
Here. Okay, there we go.
This is the or else provision. Now, if you have a statute with no or else provision, why, you might as well just stop wasting your time. Okay, because if somebody can ignore you, like, we want to audit your voting machines, and they say, we don't care, we won't let you. Okay, that kind of stuff. Then your legislation is meaningless. Your authority, you have no authority. Okay, so we have to have an or else provision. Here it is. If a defendant, and that would be Facebook or YouTube or whoever, fails to implement the orders of the court to restore rights without good cause shown, they shall be subject to fines of up to 1% of defendant's gross revenue per month until the breach is corrected, or for 24 months, whichever is less, as determined by the finders of fact in the case, the judge or the jury, depending on where you are. So, and then the proceeds can be split between the state treasury and the plaintiff. You can word this any way you want, but the bottom line is these are multi-billion-dollar corporations, and we're going to give them an order saying that James White's Facebook page is going to be restored. And if you don't want to do that, great, because now James White within 2 months is going to be worth $500 million, and the state of Montana is going to get another $500 million. And so I just don't think Facebook wants any part of that. And so this is designed, again, never to be used. Section 5.3, the jury part of it, is designed never to be used because people don't want to go there. They know what the difference between right and wrong, and all they need to know is, there's accountability now in the system, and so I think I'm just going to do the right thing, and just stay away from having to pay through the nose. And then if you skip down to the top of the second page, there is a revised version of this where we create this as a separate statute, and there's a reason for it. So we'll read through it here. Residency. So say Montana enacts this statute, and they can also tack this thing on the end that says residency is prescribed by state law. For the purposes of this section, residency may also be established by having a post office box in the state for at least 45 days prior to filing an action in a state court, which means that if any state that enacts that provision, along with the rest of this statute, which is in conformance with federal law, now all of a sudden, everybody in the country has a remedy for unjust internet censorship. because all they got to do is say, "Oh, you took down my YouTube channel. That's fine. I'll just get a PO box in Montana and send you a demand letter, and we'll see what happens in the next 45 days. I think you guys will put my YouTube channel back up."
Let me
And so that
let me interject here for a minute, Marty, and we've got about 5 minutes left here in the show. We've had, I think we had 38 or 39. Yeah, 39 rings a bell. 39. What are they? The attorney generals for the states all come together on a class action lawsuit against big tech. I want to say that number 39 rings a bell to me. 38, 39. Wouldn't it seem to you that those, if you were able to reach out to those 39 states, that a good portion of them would want to adopt a bill like this? I mean, how many do you think? Well, how many do you think you need, Marty? If 5 states sign on to this, two. Give
me 2. Give me 3. Give me 1. Let's start with 1, because right now in Arizona, we have 15 bills for election reform, and not one of them says anything about reining in the voting machines. I don't understand it. Okay, somebody's telling these people something, or there's something going on that's just not in the public sphere that I can say, oh yeah, now I get it. It just doesn't make any sense. And the same thing now. This here I can understand, because all you need is an attorney to lead people astray and say, like you said, the class action lawsuit, that's seeking civil damages. Tell me I'm wrong. Now I'd have to read their lawsuit, but if you just want rights restored, the federal law does not prohibit that. It only prohibits you from going after money damages. And so litigation for money damages that's just one option. One of the other option to have your rights restored, that's wide open. The statute, it doesn't explicitly allow it, but it doesn't prohibit it. And anything that's not prohibited, you're allowed to do. And so that's what this proposed statute does, is it steps into that area that federal law is giving you and says, we're going to go ahead and provide a mechanism to straighten this problem out. If one state passes this thing along with that second provision, now the only difference is we made it a separate statute in the next revision. So that way, if they challenge that provision, then the other statute is still in place and we can still process complaints within our own state. But it's just a technical thing. But you can see the package that's there. We go after restoring people's rights, and then you're entitled to reasonable fees and costs. And $35,000 seems like a lot of money to a lot of people, but there's a lot of lawyers that they're just to get started on a case, their initial retainer's $20,000. That's not unheard of. If you have to hire lawyers,
90 seconds.
If you're out of state, you're going to have to hire somebody to do it. So
where can people that are listening to this broadcast, Marty, how can they get, do they need to contact our legislators and send them over to your website to have them take a look at the bill?
You can download our stuff at WTPCS, We the People Court Services.org. Okay. And I think you said that you might put it up here on some of your
60 seconds
destinations.
I can. When I publish the article for this and the accompanying interview, I can put the link on there for sure. You can download it from Montana Daily Gazette when I get it.
So we're about trying to save the country. Without free speech, without sound election integrity, then all the other stuff that we think is important that we need to work on, forget about it. You don't even have a chance. So
we're just out of time, Marty. WT, what is it again? One more time for the
We the People Court Services, WTPCH CS.org. And we'll have those documents up there because I'm creating a nice simple one to make it even more prettier.
Right.
And so that's going to be available tonight.
We're just out of time, Marty. We appreciate you joining us here on the broadcast as always. And we look forward to having you back on. Keep us updated on this, and we will we will. You and I communicate often. So if anything comes up with this, or if we get it, if you start scoring some legislators that are interested in this, let me know, and then we'll do a show, or we'll make an announcement, put pressure on other people to do it. So that's the whole thing, right? It's like the dance floor. Nobody wants to go on the dance floor until the first person gets out there, and then next thing you know, 10 minutes later, there's 50 people on the dance floor. We just had to get that first person out there dancing first, and then once that happens, other people join in. Same thing. We need to get one state on board or 2 states on board on the dance floor, and I think the rest of them will come on board.
And everybody needs to do something. If
That's
you
right.
do nothing, you know what the result of that's going to be.
We know that.
So you have to at least try.
Martin Lynch, thanks so much for joining us here on the broadcast. We're just out of time. And we always appreciate you coming here. Keep up your great work, man. We'll be in touch. Thanks again.
Always
for being
great
here.
to be with you, Jim.
Thank you. Pleasure's all mine. You're welcome, my friend. Okay, there goes Marty Lynch, one of the good guys here in all this, really trying to help children, especially help what's the word I'm looking for? Reform the courts, and he's doing a great job on that. We appreciate him being here. We're just out of time. If you want to support this broadcast, go to northwestlibertynews.com, northwestlibertynews.com, or criticaldisclosure.com. Or the MontanaDailyGazette.com for truthful, honest, hard-hitting, real news. We're actually a #1 online website here in Montana, news website anyway. So check us out over at MontanaDailyGazette.com. Appreciate you looking in. Ron Gibson's back tomorrow for 2-hour show with call-ins. And then Saturday we'll have the roundtable again with Jason Q and Kelly, and Dave and I will be here at noon on Saturday. So look on Northwest Liberty News and check out your alerts for those show times. I'll be putting those out here soon. Thanks so much again for looking in here. I'm your host, James White. Until next time, James White for Northwest Liberty News and Critical Disclosure Radio, saying bye now.